Can you hear
Hello?
Sally?
Is she muted?
Can you check if you're muted?
Oh, I think we just muted her. She just, yeah, so she's not muted because she just tried to mute herself or did
Okay.
it herself.
Okay, is that working? Hello, can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. Is that muted? Oh, is that working?
We're good.
All right.
We're good. We're good.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Is that Andrew trying to get on?
No.
Okay. Oh, there comes Jesse. Hi, Jesse.
Hi.
I figured it out. Sorry.
Oh, no
Good,
problem.
you're good.
Thank you.
We're still waiting for our last
We're
person.
just waiting for Andrew.
Sounds good.
All of you are interested in being added to our list here. Feel free to sign up at our computer up there.
Are you? Is it just so the link would just be on our YouTube?
The link will just be on YouTube. Just go to our YouTube account. And there's a live link there.
Oh, yeah. Andrew said he tried link for me at all.
That's weird.
Maybe what's the old one?
I'll send him another one.
She tried a couple times. He got like, you tell him to check the last link. He got multiple.
Basics. Technology is basic.
All right.
You're done.
Oh.
Sorry, it is A.T. Gibson, right?
Yeah. I think so. It's
A.T. Gibson 27. Okay, I'll just send it straight to his inbox. That could be it. Here, I'm gonna turn this down over here.
Back. Oh, that's us.
Wait, why are we just? Oh.
Did he get it yet?
Any other questions?
All right.
I was like giving high fives and like every time.
Okay. Since this is good right here, I'm going to answer really quick. I'm just okay. Okay, well, I'm just doing this.
What are you doing? Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just waiting for one more person to jump on.
Yeah.
All right. He should have enough. Sorry, we're just waiting for Andrew.
That's not problem. What you're saying.
Right. How are you guys?
Good.
Great. All right, we have Andrew now.
Cool.
Oh,
everybody.
Howdy.
all right. Hello. And I will give the floor to Ryan, Mr. Moderator.
All right, how's it going, y'all? Welcome to ONA's How to Stand Up to the Crowd event. So we have 3 lovely guests here who are going to be, yeah, that would be good. We should do that. Who are going to be answering questions, talk a little bit about how they have built their own personal brand, how they kind of stood out in the crowd and tried to get jobs, and how they use digital media especially to do that. So first things first, as we're turning our camera around, I'm going to have each of them go ahead and give kind of a brief introduction of themselves, who they are, when they graduated from Mizzou, and the path, and kind of the abbreviated version of the path they took to get to whatever job they're at now. So Sally, do you want to start? Am I being heard?
All right.
Can y'all hear me?
You may assume.
I hear you.
I can hear you.
Cool. Sally, can you hear me? Sally. Oh, Sally might be frozen. So we're going to have Jesse start us off as hopefully Sally can get unfrozen. Jesse, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi guys, my name is Jessie Lewick. I graduated in December of 2014, and I have to apologize. My cat is climbing all over my desk. And so I was in, I did magazine journalism, and I focused in magazine design, and I was also an art major, and I studied graphic design as well. What else did y'all want me to say? I guess where I am now. Okay, I am now living and working in Kansas City, and I am a graphic designer for Hallmark Cards. I work in the visual merchandising department.
Cool. Sally, do you mind introducing yourself?
Yes, my name is Sally. I graduated with a photojournalism degree in 2013. Right now, I'm the social media editor for MarketWatch. We're the financial online outlet for the Wall Street Journal. And I'm in San Francisco. All of our tech people are out here, so I also covered drones, and I think sort of one of the reasons I was brought on is that I have a blog called The Drone Girl that I do on the side. And where I literally am right now is I'm at my gym. I also volunteer teach gym. And so my class is in a half an hour, so I apologize. I need to run out and go to my class, which is where I literally am right now.
And do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
All right. Hi, I'm Andrew Gibson. I graduated in May 2014. I did the convergence track, and I wasn't officially a computer science minor, but I think I took about 30 credit hours worth of computer science classes, which kind of tailors into where I am now. I'm at the Orlando Sentinel in sunny Orlando, Florida, working on everything from interactive projects to just straight up web development stuff. So yeah, here I am.
Cool. And so like Sally said, she's got to jump out a little bit early, so we're going to toss her a few questions first. And then Jesse and Angie, if you have specific things to jump in, feel free. We'll definitely get you guys a little more time afterwards. But Sally, first, you talked a little bit about it at the beginning, but what do you consider your personal brand, or kind of how have you created your personal brand?
Yes, so my personal brand is definitely the Drone Girl, and that actually started at Mizzou, which is really cool. So when I graduated at Mizzou, I knew I wanted to graduate in 3 years, and I sort of realized at the last minute that I was 1 credit short, and so I was like, what kind of class can I take to get my 1 credit? And this was in 2013. I don't know if you guys remember, we're students at Mizzou then, but they had a drone journalism course. And so I didn't know what a drone was. I didn't care about robots in any capacity. But I took the course, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And we talked about how you can use drones for journalism. And I loved the class, and so I graduated. I got my credit, and I'm out. And I decided I didn't want the class to end. I wanted to keep learning about drones. And so I made this blog called The Drone Girl. And at the time, I had like 4 followers, and 2 of them were my mom and my dad. And I just kept the blog going, and it grew. I would get retweets from like famous people in the drone industry, and suddenly I became a famous person in the drone industry, which is sort of weird. And so I was writing a lot about drones. I developed this big social media presence, and it all sort of came into place not even until after I graduated. It's October, and if any of you guys out there are seniors, October my senior year, if you had asked me what I would be doing with drones, I would say I don't even know what a drone is. And so that sort of developed from there. And then I actually went through 3 different jobs to get the one that I'm at now, which I would not condone or encourage, but I graduated. I took one job that was sort of just average and was not really making me especially happy. And then I took a second job, which actually made me very sad. It was a very poorly managed job. So I left both of those, and after that second job, I thought, I might just keep my personal brand and make that my full-time job, and that was a really scary move. And at the time, it was probably too ambitious of a move. I was making enough money off of freelancing stories and all that, but living in San Francisco is very expensive. So I realized, I need a full-time job. with a stable income, and plus I like working with people, and so I saw this social media editor job at the Wall Street Journal's Market Watch, and they said, you know, you're really good at developing an online presence. You created this online presence out of drones, and so we don't really report on drones, but you're good at social media, so will you come do social media full-time for us? And so that personal brand joined into my full-time job, and now drones are very common in the news. I'm sure you hear about them all the time. And now Market Watch is saying, actually, we do want you to cover drones. So it's sort of come full circle.
Awesome. So how did you talked about, you know, using Twitter, and you started getting retweeted by people and building this online presence. Can you walk us through a little bit like how you did that? Kind of how you built the dronegirl.com?
Yeah, I mean, Missouri kids in general, I feel like, are good at social media, and it's shocking how many people are bad at social media, because I think Mizzou, like, makes it seem like it's just like doing 2 + 2, but I definitely had like 0 followers for a long time. Like, I had to like beg my friends to follow me, and I think probably that was the hardest part. Was, you know, the first few months you're like, yes, I got a follower, you know, and like that kind of slow process. But now it's become this exponential growth, and like I'll get at least 10 followers a day, and without even like tweeting anything that day. But I think it requires a lot of patience, and I think, you know, Mizzou kids, you probably, like, this is probably obvious, but, you know, out-replying other people so they hear of you, and retweeting them so they hear of you, and you know, even being shameless and asking, like, hey, can you retweet this thing that I did, and, you know, fostering in-person relationships with the internet relationship. But, I mean, really, I think the most important thing that school doesn't teach you is it's not easy. You're not just going to create a Twitter account of whatever you're interested in and just get 1 million followers instantly. It's definitely, my account is called The Drone Girl. I don't know if they told you that, but that was definitely a work in progress. And if you looked at Drone Girl a year ago, it had like 1,000 followers, and now it has 8,000 followers. So it's growing.
Can you think of like one like tweet or one moment or one thing you did that kind of helped you get over that hump?
Yeah, definitely. There's someone famous in the drone industry called, his name is Chris Anderson, and he retweeted me, and I actually knew him personally, because, you know, we were in the drone community, and so he had heard of me, so he retweeted me, and I mean, I can't say for sure, but that was like the first tweet that got like 10 retweets, you know, and all the other ones I was like, oh, I got 1. And so I sort of feel like maybe that was the catalyst that, you know, he was verified and all that, and so I think that sort of helped, was getting that 1 retweet. But even that 1 retweet, I had prior conversations with him.
So you obviously have your kind of your social media side of the drone, but you also have the dronegirl.com. Can you talk a little bit about building that?
Yeah, that was also a thing that for the longest time I had like 2 followers, and that was hard to keep up. But now I write about drones all the time, and so when I first started, I was not doing that full time. I was working at a different newspaper that I was sort of dissatisfied with. I just wasn't really doing anything like groundbreaking, and so I would at night come home and work on my blog, and on the weekends work on my blog, and on the weekends go out flying to make videos for my blog. My blog has all these drone videos, and so that was sort of like my part-time job that I did outside of my real job. So my real job paid the bills, and it was quite an ordeal to sort of set aside time to work on those blog posts. So, I mean, you guys are all journalists, so I would write, like, you know, the BuzzFeedy, like, 10 ways to take better drone photos or whatever, and I would write those written things, and I think, you know, there's a million blogs out there, and there's a million drone blogs. That's MySpace. But I feel like the thing that really helps my blog stand out is, like, I would like to say I'm a good writer, and I'm a clean writer, and I think that's the advantage you guys all have. You're trained as journalists, is you know what's going to get the clicks, what's going to be useful to people, what's a nice interface to see it. I mean, there's so many blogs that are just like pages and pages and pages, and they're not even pleasant to look at. And I think that's really where you guys have the advantage, and that definitely helped me.
Awesome. One last one specifically for Sal, and then we'll open up a little bit more. Can you think of any like particular mistake that you made in kind of building up the Drone Girl, or something maybe you wish you would have done, looking back on it now?
Ooh, I don't know. I mean, I wish I knew more about drones, like always, like right now. I don't know. I mean, I think like I wish it could have been a faster process, but I don't know what I would have done. There was a period where I said I want to give up this blog. I only have like 100 followers. What is even the point? And I stopped for an entire month. And people wrote to me, like one of the 100 people, and were like, hey, we miss your stories. Like, where have you been? And that really helped me go forward. But I don't know if that was a mistake per se. I think I set it aside for a month, and that probably like hurt my brand for sure. But I sort of think I needed that too to see, you know, is this really something that I want to pursue? And so I think it's okay to like quit something for a little bit. I don't think there's anything wrong with like stepping back and reassessing if this is something you even want to do. But I guess I was like, I would have probably like 10 more followers if I had stuck with it that month.
Fair enough. We'll move to Jesse. Jesse, can you talk a little bit about kind of what you see as your personal brand and how you built that?
Yeah, so I'm a little different. I'm not in a journalism field. I'm a graphic designer for Hallmark, which is essentially just a paper company. But I swear I can make it relevant. So when Kara reached out to me to like invite me to talk to you all, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't touched my website since I graduated. I like got a job and just kind of forgot about it, so don't do that. But I was really certain that, originally I was certain that I wanted to work for a magazine. I really wanted to be a designer. And then after I had an internship at a Milwaukee magazine, I still was interested in editorial design, but wasn't completely sure if I'd be fully fulfilled. So as I was applying for jobs my last semester, I was applying to magazines and publications as well as just graphic design firms. And so what's hard is that a lot of people who heard I was a graphic designer were like, oh, so you're into advertising. And I was like, no, I'm not doing the Stratcom track. I'm doing the magazine track. I love editorial. And so what was a challenge for me was figuring out how to show all of the work I liked to work on. A majority of my experience was definitely within editorial, but I also wanted to show all of the crazy random stuff I made in my graphic design classes through the art school. And when you are applying for a design position, your identity is literally your portfolio. That is what your employers are going to look at. That's what the recruiters are looking at. Like my resume needs to be impressive and my cover letter needs to capture them, but what they were looking at was my work and my design skill and my design aesthetic. And so I knew that just the industry standard is to have a website and to have an online portfolio, and that always kind of stressed me out, but once I sat down and kind of focused on what I wanted it to look like, it was easy to put all of my stuff out there and figure out how I wanted to showcase it. And so I used, I don't know if any of you guys are still looking for websites to use or whatever, but my first step was kind of building my website, and I used Squarespace. And it was awesome because it was really clean, and I could kind of tailor it however I wanted to, even though there are still bugs about it that kind of bother me. It's way better than any of the others I played with. And so what I did, and kind of what Sally was saying, is like what's going to keep your blog standing out from others, and what, like the fact that Mizzou students just understand social media because we had such a great education. I kind of feel the same way about web design. Your professors and your TAs and all of your classmates are exposing you to really solid websites already, so you're kind of already, even if you haven't studied web design, you already know what a good website and a bad website looks like just because you're constantly on the web. So I think what's really great about Mizzou students and the journalism degree that you guys are getting is that you are really skilled in editing, and you're really skilled in self-editing. And I think that's what's important with your online presence is that I would say it's super easy. Okay, so for me, Sally was talking a lot about Twitter. For me and for the design world, it's all about Instagram. It's very common for me to have never met a designer at Hallmark in person, but know a lot about their life because I follow them on Instagram, and I'll like see them in the cafe and be like, should I say hi? I just liked one of their photos. You know, like Instagram is our way of communicating with each other now, and it's really easy and just to post anything and everything. But I think what's important is as you're starting to build that more of a professional presence on Instagram or on your website or on your blog is that you're understanding what self-editing means and that not everything is worth the post, or even if one thing only got 10 likes, it's not that big of a deal because it still could have some value to it. So I learned that self-editing is really important. And yes, if you look at my Instagram feed, I have way too many pictures of my cat. But I think part of that is getting your personality out there. That's really important for my field. There are a lot of designers who have equally strong work, but my boss needed to make sure my personality fit my department. You know, he needed to make sure I was someone he could work with. And so I think you guys have a leg up because you understand the editing process. You understand what looks good and what doesn't look good. And because of that, you can kind of start to think like, is this the message I'm trying to send about myself? And is the message I send on my Instagram account the same message I'm trying to send on my Twitter account, etc.? You know, there's ways to kind of tailor that to whichever social media outlet you're using.
Awesome. Cool. We'll move to Andrew now to get his introduction in. Jess, you talked a little bit about web design. I know that that's something that was a big part of your kind of building your personal brand as you were going to look for jobs.
Yeah, definitely. So I certainly don't have as cool sounding a personal brand as the Drone Girl, that's for sure. But,
You look like you could be a good drone girl.
you know, maybe. But yeah, I will say that, you know, if I had to describe like what a brand that I made, it would be around coding. So, you know, which actually I should say it's actually my portfolio site is kind of in an embarrassing state right now because like I haven't updated it at all since I got hired, but that's beside the point. Yeah, but I would say as far as coding goes, you know, it's increasingly common these days for journalists to know some code like HTML and CSS and all that. In fact, there's actually there's a class, I think it's J4502, Multimedia Planning and Design, which I highly recommend. But more and more you hear about a lot of journalists from, you know, our age group having some of those basic web development skills. So what I really tried to do is make it so that I didn't just have those basic skills. I really tried to take it beyond and become a true like, computer scientist, I guess you could say. And so that's where I mentioned earlier taking those, you know, like 30 credit hours worth of computer science classes. I didn't want to be just a journalist who codes. I wanted to be a true developer and also a true journalist at the same time. So, you know, to practice those skills that I learned, I just did a lot of, you know, playing around on my own, just building things, breaking things online, all that. I also did an independent study at KBIA, which was really good because they don't usually have like an interactive graphics person on staff. So when I did that independent study, they pretty much just gave me free reign to say, you know, just show up every week, pitch an interactive project, and then make it happen. That was a really good place to just experiment, see what works, see what doesn't. But I will say right now that if you ever are interested in getting some specific classes in the Mizzou Computer Science Department, if you're interested at all in building your coding skills, definitely tweet me or message me or email me after this, and I'd be happy to do that. But anyway, I digress. But as far as, you know, where I am now, I did code my own portfolio site, which kind of sucks now, but it did happen, and that's something that helped me get my position as an intern at the Orlando Sentinel in 2013. I was a digital intern there, and I did a few interactive projects and further kind of honed my skills. And I guess I made a decent enough of an impression at the Sentinel to come back and get hired there a year later, which of course is where I'm sitting right now. And it was largely just because I had some of those deep web development skills. And honestly, on the job today, I still do a lot of editorial stuff. There's also times when the work I do is just straight kind of technology work, building news apps and things like that. So that's definitely maybe not the most exciting thing in the world, but having some of those computer science skills and coding skills really goes a long way in the job market these days. Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, awesome. I know Sally has to leave pretty soon, so I want to get one more question. I know that you're kind of on the social media front. I know you have separate kind of personal accounts, and you kind of have your Drone Girl accounts. Talk a little bit about kind of having almost like a separate digital world for your personal brand.
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's something that I questioned a lot, and I still don't know if I made the right answer. But I have 2 Twitter accounts. I have SAF Media, which is my personal one, and then I have the Drone Girl. But I also cover finance for MarketWatch. I write financial stories pretty much every day. And so it sort of made sense to have 2 different Twitter accounts. At least I felt like it did, because I could just have all of my drone tweets at the Drone Girl, and then I could, work wants you to tweet out like your stories or, all that. And so I didn't want to spam people who only cared about drones. They're like all of a sudden, like Goldman Sachs. And so I feel more okay tweeting about Goldman Sachs doing something crazy on my SAF Media account, because that's sort of my work account. But I like what your thoughts on this too. Like, I don't know if this is the right decision to have 2 different accounts, but it makes sense, at least to me, to just keep all the drone stuff in one place.
Cool, makes sense. Any kind of last thoughts? I know you have to leave kind of soon. Any last thoughts on branding or on anything you want to make sure you get in?
I would just say, don't give up. Come up with something, original. I think I was in a class with you, and they said everyone needs to have a blog, and I was like, oh crap, like I don't know what I want to blog about. Like, I like fitness, like I like to cook, like should I do that? But there's like a million fitness and cooking blogs out there, and I just like had no idea how I could stand out. And if you can stand out with your fitness and cooking blog, that's great, but there's already a ton of those. And so the drone thing was sort of serendipitous. Drones were sort of this new technology. They could be big, who knows, but nobody is blogging about drones right now. I really was one of the first drone blogs out there, and so that really helped. But definitely come up with something unique, and that's sort of the hardest part. And for me, drones fell into my lap. I mean, maybe design is like you're really good at design, and so you don't even need to come up with anything other than design because you're so good at it. But like, I'm not good at that. So I was like, okay, let's do something different, and that was drones. And I mean, just really, really stick with it. It's so easy to give up, and I think I was fortunate that I had some type of job and even financial security to fall back on, which I realize a lot of people don't have. But sticking with the blog is one of the hardest things to do until it got big. And I think a lot of people I see now in their mid-20s sort of expect to have this dream job and aren't really willing to put in the work to make it happen. And there's been so many Friday nights that I've sat fixing an email on my blog, redirect to the wrong place or something crazy. And I would so much rather be out partying on a Friday night, but putting in the work to make that stuff work really makes a difference.
Awesome. Thank you, Sally. Opening up another question kind of to the group. We talked a lot about kind of social media and how to use that. Jesse talked about kind of how important Instagram is. As a designer, how do you guys kind of use, we learn a lot at Mizzou about kind of being professional on social media and using it to kind of advance your career. How have you used social media kind of to advance your brand, to advance yourself as someone working in the industry?
I can talk a little bit about it. I'm by no means a social media genius, not by any stretch of the imagination, but it was something that I tried to tweet fairly regularly during college, and actually I did some social media work for ONA Mizzou as well, which that was actually a really good experience as well. I will say that now being on social media really is helpful in the professional world because I constantly run into problems like with my code or something doesn't work. And I worked throughout my time at Mizzou to kind of build up a following on Twitter of other news developer types. So, fairly common if I encounter a problem or have a question about something I'm working on and I can't find it through just a Google search, I'll just put a question out there on Twitter, and a lot of times you'll get a response, problem solved. So if you kind of know what field or what area of journalism you want to go into, it's never too early to start kind of working on that, getting that niche group of people in your social media circle that could come in handy later.
Jesse, any other thoughts? Is anything beyond Instagram or any kind of specific things that were important to learn about kind of building your Instagram brand almost?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily say I have a brand. I wish I did, unless my brand is like, I'm sitting in bed with my cats today again. But what I really tried to do was kind of show my creative process on my social media accounts. And so that was really important for me. If people were searching for my stuff, I didn't want them just to see on my website, they would see the final pretty photos of all the projects I did in their final state. But on my Instagram, and I used Twitter a lot more in college than I do now, but I wanted to showcase my creative process, my working process. So I would show sketches, or I would show like sneak peek of my latest project, or finishing up this project tomorrow, can't wait to show everyone. And it was honestly like really, I think only my friends and my grandmas looking at this, but it was still really fun to kind of get it out there. And so for me, my account is personal and professional. I definitely did a lot more self-promotional stuff while I was applying for jobs and looking for work than I do now. But in terms of being professional, I just kind of did what I thought was pretty, which I think is a given to students. Like, I really don't post pictures from parties. I don't post even now. Like, I'm 23 and I'm still paranoid about putting alcohol on the internet. I don't use cuss words. I don't, I want people to. The brand I'm trying to set for myself is that, like, I don't know, I just want people to know the fun side of my personality and, like, the stuff I love to work on. So just anything, like, goofy and silly and playful. And my big thing was I tried to send this message of, like, I love to play. I love to work with my hands. And so I wasn't going to do this, like, counter-identity thing where I'm like, I love to play and look at me playing with Crayola markers. And then the next day be like, look at me downing this margarita. I just knew for sure that that's not what I wanted to do. And you guys are going to hear that forever. I don't know what years you guys are at, but I think people say it and people don't really believe it, but for me that was actually something I worked really intentionally on, was like just keeping it real but not too real. You know what I mean? And so for me, my favorite thing to do on social media was to show my creative process, show my working process, show other, like I would blog about or talk about other things that really inspired me. Because that was one of the questions I got in some of my job interviews, was like, what designers do you like to look at? And I was like, oh, thank goodness I actually follow some, So that was really important for me. Just for me, the creativity was the brand. Like, I want them to see what that means for me, how much I care about it, how passionate I am about it. So I needed to do so in a way that was playful and not too serious, but also professional at the same time.
Awesome. And Andrew talked a little bit about, kind of doing some social media work here at ONA and some stuff he did kind of during his undergrad to kind of work on some of those branding skills and work on that kind of stuff. I know, Jesse, you did. Can you talk a little bit about the type of work that you did outside of your class to kind of work on your design skills and help kind of ready you for your job search?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So through the art school, my design classes were extremely time consuming. Like by my senior year, so I was there 4.5 years. So I had a 1.5 years of senior yearness. I did 2 capstones at one time. That was hell. I did tons of really intense classes, and so I was really designing all the time. My computer was always out. I always had Illustrator up. I always had InDesign up. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to obviously do well on my projects. I wanted A's. That's just who I was. But I also wanted to be able to show, like, if a employer ever asked, like, show me something you didn't have to do. Like, what's a project you did just for fun? I wanted to actually have a project I had done just for fun. So there was stuff I did on the side. There was stuff I did freelance for. But then I also worked for the FIGS program, and I did which Ryan and Karen both work for. But I did a lot of just promotional design stuff for them. And so what was awesome about people knowing that I had design skills is, like, literally anywhere I went, people would ask, like, can you design something for us? And I'd be like, yeah, how long will it take? I just didn't want to ever turn anything down. And that involved group projects, that involved other jobs, that involved free time. And so if I wasn't, like, studying or writing papers or hanging out with friends, I was designing something. Just, like, learning new shortcuts in InDesign or Illustrator, or I'm recently getting into calligraphy because that's, like, everywhere. And so I really want to learn how to do formal calligraphy so I can add that to my skill set. I'm getting into weaving, which is really random and has nothing to do with journalism or graphic design, but it just is, it's this idea of, like, always having a project you're working on that you're passionate about and always finding new skills, which I think kind of is what Sally was saying when she was starting Drone Girl. She didn't think it would turn into anything, and now look where she is. That's really exciting for her.
Cool. Andrew, any other things that you kind of did during your undergrad that you didn't necessarily have to do but helped you kind of develop your skills?
Yeah, I mean, I already mentioned independent study, but that really is a good way because I think that fits into the category of something that you don't have to do. I mean, like, as far as credit hours, by that point, it was second semester, senior year. Like, I didn't need to go do the graphics work at KBIA, but it was just an opportunity to build up new skills. So if you have the class credit hours to spare, and go find somewhere to do an independent study at that'll let you, work out those skills a little bit. That's the one that comes to mind immediately. I think I mentioned too that a lot of times if there was just a spare couple minutes here and there, I would just start coding something. I mean, web development is really something where, you constantly hear, like, oh, you just got to do it to learn it, but it really is true with development. Just go and build, like, the most simple little application that you can. Like, build something that, like, you click a button and it turns the web page yellow, or, like, something very stupid like that. Because the more and more you just get comfortable with this coding and syntax and all that, the easier it gets. So you got to start somewhere. So just do it, play around.
Cool. I want to kind of move off me and open it up to our folks here and see if anyone has any questions for Andrew or Jesse about what they're doing and kind of building a personal brand. Don't have any questions they'd like to share, or any other members. Yeah.
If they'll be able to hear me, like, how do employers bring up your brand if it comes up while you're getting hired? Like, is that a question that they ask about your social media presence, or like how does that conversation take place? Are they finding you already online, or behind the social media brand?
Sorry, that's an awesome question. One thing I really learned about interviewing, because I think that's a nerve-wracking part of the job application process, is that you have to bring up what you want to talk about. So I don't know if an employer would ever be like, tell me about your social media brand, because I don't know if that's necessarily language that's used in the real world. But if that's something you are excited about because you've put so much work into building it, then you bring it up, right? So they ask, like, they're asking you about, like, tell me something you're passionate about, or tell me something you like to do for fun. Like Andrew was saying, well, when I have 3 minutes, I turn web pages yellow. Like, you are the one who can bring that up and say, well, if you can you know, you might have taken a look at my Twitter account, and you can see that I retweet a lot of blogs about this. You know, like, it is up to you to bring up what it is you want to talk about, because they're just asking general questions. And so it's like tricky to kind of navigate how you would enter into that conversation, but if that's something you really want them to know about you, figure out how to bring that up.
Andrew, anything else? Go for it.
Yeah, I'll just be straight up honest. The whole idea of a personal brand didn't come up in my interview process, but I think that's probably because, as I mentioned, I kind of already like knew the people I was interviewing with from my prior internship, so I think they kind of like knew what I was like. But you know, by all means, I agree with everything Jesse said. I mean, there's no doubt it's important. Sorry, I don't have a more detailed answer.
Other questions? Yeah.
So, hi, I'm exactly with Andrew. I just tweeted at you because I'm interested in learning about coding. But going to that social media branding, is that just like is that an expected element that they require you to have? Because like I have a Twitter, my own website, and like my own personal blog that's linked through the Twitter. But if that's not pushed forward and just is linked to it as well, is that, how often do you think that the recruiters will have seen that anyway and that's already factored into the conversation, or is it just kind of like, we just got to get this interview over with?
Did you answer the question?
A little bit. I heard bits and pieces.
I think I heard most of it. I mean, I would say to a certain extent it depends on what position you're applying for. I know I'm not a reporter, but I know that the reporters here who have come through and been interviewed have absolutely been asked about it. And they've been asked about it in crucial ways because we put a lot of stock here on, for example, our courts reporter is absolutely required to, you know, live tweet important courts that are, or, you know, court dates that are happening down the street. So no, I definitely don't think it's just, you know, a question that the recruiter or whoever feels compelled to answer. I mean, I think, you know, definitely be prepared to be asked specific questions about, I saw you did this on Twitter, why, or why do you follow this person? I mean, I think you know it's a reasonable question.
Yeah, so just Jesse, the question was kind of basically, are recruiters and employers kind of actively looking at someone at your social media and bringing that up, or is it more kind of what you were talking about, when you have to be the one pushing it?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That's something I was really curious about in college, because I think people keep saying, oh, it's a given, they'll Google you. But like, Google me and there's like a bunch of things that pop up before my website pops up, potentially. I don't know, I haven't Googled myself in a while. But I'm interested to know, because that was something I put so much emphasis on when I did focus on like professionalism on my social media space. I agree with Andrew, it depends on the job you're applying for. It didn't really matter for my position specifically, but I actually am curious about that, and I might email one of our recruiters at Hallmark and ask how often they like look at. I might ask that question, and I'll email Kara or Ryan, and they can let you know or something, because that's interesting to me.
Awesome. Any other questions? Things you're curious about? Yeah.
I guess I'm more curious about how important is it to have like a specific focus on like your blog or something, because I feel like if you have like a passion for like multiple things or just like an industry in general, like you have to do like, these have to be like specifically fashion, or does it have to be like specifically like coding, or like she said, like drones? Could it just be like what she wanted to do, like electronics in general, and talk about, you know, cell phones and different things? So like, if it's like a lifestyle blog, like does it matter, or do you have to have like a specific, I guess, like professional focused blog, like a personal?
So the question was, how important is it to have a specific focus on your blog versus just kind of like a general interest thing? Did I hear that right?
Yes.
I mean, I think it's very important, and I mean, two people I'll point out as examples. You may have heard of them. There's a guy named Brian Stelter who works for CNN. There's a guy named Craig Canale who used to work for the Huffington Post. He now works in the NHL. But those guys both got hired because of their blogs, and both of those blogs were great because they had such a good specific focus. Brian Stelter had TV Newser, which all he did was just blog about TV ratings, and occasionally some insider info about TV personalities. But the thing that got his blog noticed and got traction was that he would every single morning update his blog with what TV ratings are, what's doing well, what's doing not, and it got to be a place where thousands of people would go every morning expecting that info. And as far as Craig Canale, the other guy, he really got noticed because his blog was only about, I think his blog was called Breaking Tweets. And what he did is his blog was just based around aggregating tweets about what breaking news were happening at any given time. And again, that got noticed, that got immensely popular, and he got a great job at the Huffington Post. So, not to say you can blog general interest, but it's these really specific, unique things that I think are going to get you noticed more. So, those are two very successful examples. But I think I would definitely say pick a niche.
Yes, I would agree. If that's something I did not do, I'm very jealous of those who can do it, and I wouldn't say it's a requirement. I think I heard you say, do we need to? I think it's just what Andrew's saying is definitely going to make you stand out. That's what, but also recognizing it's not going to happen overnight. Listen to what Sally was saying about how she said her parents were her only followers for a little while. So I know you guys learn, there's such an importance of credibility for journalists, and I think when you pick a niche, you are building your credibility because you're not trying to dabble in 14 interests. You're trying to show your passion for one interest, and that might not be your only interest, but it might be the one you care about enough to do your research, write about it, blog about it, learn more about it in your free time. And something I'm still working on in my kind of non-work life is what can my niche be? Because some of the people that I feel like a broken record that I keep talking about Instagram, but I don't know why it's so huge at Hallmark. But some of the people who work at Hallmark who I follow, the reason I love following them is because they work on such specific projects, and it's so fun for me to see how those projects develop. So this one woman just makes stuffed animals by hand stitches them all. And they're really popular and they're really adorable, and I love following her and I love seeing her as I get coffee in the morning because it's so cool what I can see creative people doing. And so I would say it's important. I would not say it's required. I just think it would make you stand out because it shows that you care enough to really research and dive into the details. And I think that's really important for a prospective employee.
Awesome. So maybe we got time for one more. Yes.
So if anybody else has one. Okay. So mine is kind of jumping off that question. My worry whenever, a lot of my classes, I am asked to do a blog for credit, and in continuing that to trying to get a job, it's should I continue a blog that I don't really care about just to have a blog? And I don't know. I guess it's always I'm just trying to figure out. Is it better to just not have a blog, and say, oh, well, I don't have this because I didn't, have a specific niche that I wanted to talk about, or is it better to have that social media and keep it up even if it's not something you're passionate about?
I think that's also a great question. So this is totally random but awesome. 2 weeks ago, I got to see Amy Poehler speak at the Kaufman Performing Arts Center in Kansas City. And what you just asked reminded me of something she said. She was talking about charity. She was talking about philanthropy. She was talking about just being involved in doing your part. What does that mean? And she said, she was like, don't do something you don't want to do. Don't go bathe the elderly if you're afraid of old people. Don't. That it's really important to help, but why would you do something you're not passionate about? Why would you do something you don't like? So she basically was saying charity is selfish, and that's good because if you choose something you love, you'll stick with it. So if you start a blog for class and you hate it, then as soon as class is over and you have your grade, you're going to quit blogging about that because you don't care about it. And so that has really stuck with me. It's do what you love, period. If you want to be healthy, if you want to be mentally sane, if you really want to enjoy your career and enjoy developing your career, Just do something you love. And I think there's definitely ways to, I remember the required blog posts were like, why? I don't care about this. But I think there's always, always, always a way to angle it towards something you care about. You guys know all about angles, you know all about storytelling, and there's always a way to take something and figure out how it fits a passion of yours, and I think that focus will really stand out.
I agree with what Jesse said. You know, if you're not happy with your current blog, and you're just kind of going through the motions, I would say that when you have the option, stop doing that blog. But then, you know, don't just not have start a new one. And there's, you know, I really don't think it's going to be harmful for you in the long run. I mean, I can say that I blogged about a bunch of different things. I had one about digital journalism, and I got bored of that. I had one about weather. I know, very nerdy. I got bored of that too. My senior year, I had one about gin and tonics. I mean, come on, like I'm all over the board here. So if you Google Andrew Gibson and look back far enough, like I'm sure you'll see all of those things. But I finally, I finally found something that I enjoyed, like writing about. So you don't worry about like having multiple places online where you will upload. It's not a big deal. Find something you like doing and do it.
Andrew, that makes me wonder, where's the best gin and tonic in Columbia?
You know, I won't go into detail about this, but there's some good spots. We can talk about it.
Awesome. Before we let y'all go, I think the one last question I had was just, is there one thing, kind of looking back, or, if you were to give advice to an obviously that's what you've been doing the whole time, but if there was kind of like one thing that you wish you knew about either personal branding or just kind of preparing yourself for job and internship, kind of marketing yourself and preparing yourself for those as an undergrad, what would that have been?
Okay, I'll go ahead. Loaded question. For my job search personally, I knew that personality was a big component in my hiring process. There's a lot of talented designers out there. A lot of the people in my classmates who I was quote-unquote competing with were just as talented as I was. And so it's really about making sure the places you're applying are a good fit for you, and your prospective employer feels the same way. So I was making sure I was applying to a lot of stuff, but I made sure where I was applying was somewhere I would actually want to work. Sally said at the very beginning, like, this was she's in her third job and she wouldn't recommend what she had done. There's a lot of pressure to get a job, a lot of pressure to be employed, but I think it's worth the mental health to make sure you're applying at places you would feel like you fit in. And so for me, making sure the personalities fit was important, making sure my personality came through in my work, my personality came through in my brand and my social media presence was personally very important to me. And I can say now that I've been at my job for, oh my gosh, almost 11 months. Whoa! Now that I've almost been employed for almost a year, I can say that my coworkers are one of the best parts of my job. I absolutely love going to work every day because I work with really hilarious, fun, goofy people. My creative director likes to often throw dance parties in the middle of the day. So that was a really big priority for me, that I was being really true to my personality through my work, being authentic in the stories I was telling, because I wanted that to be a priority.
So I'll say things. I will say, number one, don't be afraid to be annoying. And by that I mean don't be afraid to be persistent. Amy Simons, professor you probably know her, thought I was crazy for doing this, but when I applied for jobs, I made a spreadsheet. I wrote down the name of the place, who the contact was, what the email address was, and then after I applied, I just go through that spreadsheet and just follow up again and again and again and again until I heard something. A lot of times it was just straight up rejected. You know what? That's fine. At least I knew. And so the same thing applies for internships. Apply for everything. Find who's going to be reviewing applications. Email them, tweet at them, call them. I mean, you know, it's a small industry, and there's a lot of people applying for the same thing. You know, if you have to be a little bit annoying, at least it's getting you noticed, right? So that's one thing I would say. I would also say, you know, don't be afraid to build things. You know, clips go a long way, obviously, in terms of like videos and text and stories and all that. But if you can build something, as in like coding, build a little application, that's going to help you stand out as well, if you're into that part of the news industry, of course. And one other thing I'll say is, this is a very specific piece of advice, but when you get to the point where you are building a portfolio website, don't just do like a dump of everything you've ever done on there. Pick out your best things and say, you know, in the video category, here's my best piece of work. In the photo category, here's the best photo I ever took. And if you want to, at the bottom of the page or whatever, say, and here's links to all the other things I've done, then that's fine. But the people who are reviewing internship and job applications are very busy people, on deadlines, of course. So do everything you can to make it easy for them, and that's one way.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Andrew and Jess. We appreciate you guys taking the time to talk to us. And yeah, thanks, y'all, and thank you guys for being here.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Thanks for having me. Cool. Really, feel free to email or tweet or whatever if you have any questions.
I was going to say the same thing. I don't use Twitter anymore, really, but you can email me. Kara has my email.
Cool, yeah. We'll put both of their information out on our Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff, too. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you
Bye,
so
everybody.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
I don't know how to deal with that, so I'll let you do that.
I will stop.
Oh, just stop broadcast. That's the